Finding the vertex of a quadratic can be challenging for grade 11 math students. So in this video, I'm going to show you 4 different strategies you can use to quick and easily find the vertex of any quadratic. Let's get started. So here's the quadratic equation we're going to work with in this video. And I'm going to show you how to find the vertex by factoring, partial factoring, completing the square, and graphing. So let's start with factoring. If you missed my previous video on factoring, go take a look at that. But basically what we're going to do is factor. So in this case, we have a simple trinomial. So we need 2 numbers that multiply to give 24 and add to give negative 10. So in this case, I think those numbers are going to be negative 6 and negative 4. All right, so once you have that, you know what your zeros are, right? So x, or x-intercepts, are going to be 6 and 4. Knowing that, we can find what we call the axis of symmetry. Now, the axis of symmetry is essentially the x-coordinate of our vertex. Right? It's right in the middle, right? Where one side is the mirror image of the other side. And we can find that by looking at the average of those x-intercepts. So we're going to add them and then divide by 2. So 6 plus 4 is 10, divided by 2 is 5. So that is the x-coordinate of our vertex. If we want to find the y-coordinate, we're going to substitute that back into our function. So y will be equal to x, which we're going to have as 5. So 5 minus 6, and then x again, so 5 minus 4. So 5 minus 6 is negative 1. 5 minus 4 is just 1. So that gives us negative 1. So our vertex then, therefore, has the coordinates of 5 and negative 1. Let's try to figure this out by completing the square. So we're going to take our function, y equals x squared minus 10x plus 24. In this case, we only have a simple trinomial, so there's just a 1 in front of the x. If there wasn't, then we would factor that out of the first 2 terms. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to take this negative 10, we're going to divide by 2, which is negative 5, and then square it, which is 25. So we're going to add 25. We can't just add a number, so we're going to subtract the same number so that we don't actually change anything. Then we still have this positive 24 on the end. We can't forget about that. Now, those first 3 terms are a perfect square now. This is why it's called completing the square. So we can write that as x minus 5 squared. And then here we have negative 25 plus 24, which is minus 1. Well, if you know from vertex form, which is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k, our vertex has the coordinates h, k. So in this case, our vertex is, h is 5, and k is negative 1. Now, partial factoring is similar to factoring, but only partially. So what we're essentially doing is we're going to use the y-intercept. So I want you to imagine this. Okay, for any parabola, it's going to have a y-intercept. Let's just say, for example, this one. Now, here is our axis of symmetry. Now, this is the y-intercept where x has a value of 0, but there is going to be another point on the parabola with the same value of y. That's what we're going to find, and it's going to be perfectly on the opposite side of our axis of symmetry. So how we're going to find that is, if we look at our standard form equation, we know that that last constant at the end is our y-intercept. So in this case, for this graph, the y-intercept is 24. So I am going to place 24 in for y. And that's going to equal x squared minus 10x plus 24. Now I can solve for x, because I'm going to get two values for x that will give us the y value of 24. Now we know one of them is going to be 0, but we want to find the other one. So if I subtract 24 from both sides, we get 0 equals to x squared minus 10x, where we can factor out an x, and we're left with x minus 10. So x is going to be 0, and x is going to be 10. So we know that the other side has an x value of 10. So just as in factoring, we can now figure out where the axis of symmetry is, and that is going to be our x coordinate for the vertex. We're going to do that by finding the average of those two x values. So it's going to be 0 plus 10 divided by 2, which is 5. And then we can go ahead and substitute 5 back into the equation for x to figure out what that y coordinate is. So you would have 5 squared minus 10 times 5 plus 24, which gives us negative 1. So our vertex is 5 and negative 1. And of course, our last strategy is to open up Desmos or graphing calculator, go ahead and graph it, and you can see where the vertex is. So I hope this video has helped. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And also, if you're planning on taking grade 12 physics, you can check out my course pack that you can download for free in the description. Thanks for watching.